Hi there, Daily Gardeners. Jennifer Ebling here. I just want to give a quick shout out to the folks who have left a review for the show over on Podchaser during the month of April. I want to give a heartfelt thanks to Minnie Garrett, Valerie Tropical Gardener, Matthew Sartor, and @Bringer. Thank you so much for leaving a review for the show, especially during the month of April. You know, this month, all month long, Podchaser is willing to donate 25 cents for every time a podcast gets reviewed over on their website. And then when I reply to that review, they double that contribution. And so with your help, for each review and reply, Podchaser will donate 50 cents to World Central Kitchen, which is the organization where chefs provide meals to people fleeing Ukraine. And so far, they've provided over 1 million meals. So hats off to Podchaser for picking such a great cause. If you have a chance and can leave a review for The Daily Gardener over at podchaser.com, it's so easy to do and so much good can come from it. Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is April 19th. Today in garden history, it was on this day, back in 1792, that the naturalist Gilbert White wrote in his Selborne journal. He wrote, "Redstart appears. Daffodils are gone. Mountain snowdrops and hyacinths are in bloom, the latter very fine. Fritillaries going." And then 4 years later, on this day, in 1796, Gilbert wrote, "Sowed hollyhocks, columbines, and sweet williams." And today we celebrate the birthday of the British entomologist and botanist Adrian Hardy Haworth, who was born on this day, April 19th, in 1797. Adrian was trained to be a lawyer, but once he inherited his family's estate, he devoted himself to the study of natural sciences. And the Haworthia genus, described by the French botanist Henri Duval, honors Adrian Haworth. The genus consists of around 200 species. Now, today, Haworthias are very popular because they are succulents. Native to South Africa, Haworthias range in color from being transparent green to all shades of purple and even black. They also vary in shape and texture, and one of the most popular Haworthias is the Haworthia fasciata, or the zebra succulent. And I have 2 up at the cabin right on my windowsill over the kitchen sink. Now, this particular succulent is known for its white zebra stripes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it, and you'll probably say, I've seen that before. But this particular succulent has pointy green leaves, and then it actually has these little white bumps of tubercles that are arranged in a zebra pattern. And one of the reasons that the zebra succulent is so popular is that it's so easy to grow. And just the fact that I have mine up at the cabin tells you that it can handle a little neglect. And so the Haworthia fasciata is tough as nails, and you can even find it in most of the major big box stores. Now, as for Adrian Haworth, he's remembered for his work mainly as an entomologist. In the early 1800s, Adrian wrote one of the most authoritative works on British butterflies and moths, and his masterpiece was a book called Lepidoptera Britannica. And in his very productive lifetime, Adrian named 22 new genera of moths. And finally, here's a little fun botanical fact about Adrian. He was the first person to describe the epiphyllum oxypetalum, commonly known as the Dutchman's pipe cactus, or the queen of the night, or the night-blooming cereus. And today we also celebrate the birthday of the American botanist and ecologist E. Lucy Braun, who was born on this day, April 19th, in 1889. Now, the initial E at the beginning of Lucy's name stood for Emma, but she always went by Lucy. In 1950, Lucy was the first woman elected president of the Ecological Society of America, and she was also an expert on the deciduous forests of the eastern part of the United States. A quiet, bright, and dedicated field scientist, Lucy worked as a botany professor at the University of Cincinnati. Now, Lucy had a fascinating childhood. She became interested in the outdoors when she was growing up on May Street in Cincinnati. Lucy's parents would take her and her older sister Annette by horse-drawn streetcar to the woods in Rose Hill so that they could spend their time botanizing. And the girls were taught to identify wildflowers by their mom. And they also gathered specimens for their mother's herbarium. Now, Lucy and Annette both got PhDs, Lucy in botany and Annette in zoology. Neither ever married. Instead, they lived together at their home in Mount Washington. And the sisters turned the upstairs of their house into an indoor laboratory. And then the gardens outside became their outdoor laboratory. Lucy was a go-getter. At the age of 80, she was still leading people on field trips in Ohio. Friends of Lucy said, to be with her in the field was something. She was just so knowledgeable. Rain wouldn't stop her, and she could walk forever. And it was on this day in 1943 that the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising broke out in German-occupied Poland during World War II. The uprising was in opposition to Nazi Germany's final effort to transport the remaining population of Jews to death camps. Fast forward to 2018, and the Shalom Foundation planted the Tree of Tears in a square in Warsaw. The tree is a weeping willow, and the leaves symbolize the tears of Jewish mothers who gave their children to Catholic mothers in order to save their lives. But April 19th is also remembered with yellow paper daffodils, thanks to Merrick Edelman, a cardiologist and an uprising commander who passed away in 2009. But when he was alive, Merrick began anonymously receiving a bunch of daffodils every April 19th on the anniversary of the uprising. Merrick would lay the bouquet at the Ghetto Hero Monument. Today, the paper daffodils symbolize resilience and hope and represent the yellow star that Jewish residents were forced to wear during the Holocaust. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Flower Book by Rachel Siegfried. This book came out in 2017, and the subtitle is Let the Beauty of Each Bloom Speak for Itself. Well, before I tell you about Rachel's book, let me share with you a little bit about Rachel's background. In 2008, she set up her flower farm called Green and Gorgeous in the Oxfordshire countryside. Now, at Green and Gorgeous, Rachel not only provides flowers locally, but she also handles special events like weddings. And in her spare time, Rachel and her partner Ashley offer floristry and gardening classes for amateurs and professionals. Now, Rachel starts her book out by walking us through how she arranges flowers. This is a little step-by-step tutorial, and if you've ever considered a career as a florist, well, you're going to get a little 101 here from Rachel. And as she mentions in the beginning of her book, she breaks down her arrangement process into 3 stages, and so she calls it the 3 Fs: foliage, focal flowers, and then the final flourish. Now, Rachel walks through a number of different arrangement types. She talks about how to do front-facing displays and centerpieces, all the way down to a simple hand-tied bouquet. But then, of course, the main section of the book, the guts of the book, are these 60 flower profiles. These are Rachel's favorite cut flowers. And then those flowers are broken down into chapters by seasons, which is very helpful because, of course, if we're working with cut flowers, we have to work with what's in season in our own gardens. Now, one of the things that I especially appreciate about what Rachel does with each of these flowers is she talks about how you could best use them or profile them in an arrangement. And so she gives you little recipes how you can use these flowers and then showcase them in their very best light. The other thing that's very helpful about Rachel's book is that she's not only a florist, but she's also a gardener. So she understands what it's like to cultivate these plants, how to grow them, when it's the best time to pick them, and then how to use them, how to maximize that blossom when you bring it indoors and put it in a container. Now, I also want to quickly mention that the book not only features flowers by season, but also there is a special chapter devoted just to tropicals because they deserve a category all to themselves, not only for their exotic look and how you might handle and arrange with them, but also just because they're so architectural. And in many cases, these might not be plants that you're growing in your own garden. And then this book is published by DK. And when I see that, I know the book is going to be very clear, that the photography is going to be very crisp, and that the instructions are going to be top-notch. And that is definitely the case here. So, lots to think about, lots to learn and grow from Rachel Siegfried, the talented gardener and florist. This book is 224 pages of flower arranging and then 60 incredible flowers showcased in detail. You can get a copy of The Flower Book by Rachel Siegfried and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $8. And I just want to add that if you have any interest in getting a used copy at that price, you're going to want to act quickly because there are only a few at that price. And then the hardcovers jump up to about $25. So there you go. All right, we're going to end today's show with a botanic spark that features the American Revolutionary War. It was on this day, April 19th in 1775, that the battles of Lexington and Concord kicked off the American Revolutionary War. Now, in New England, this particular date, April 19th, became a part of common garden lore. In fact, there's a saying that you should plant your peas on April 19th, on the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington, so that they are ready by the 4th of July. Peas are very easy to grow, but they do take some time, and so this timing of planting in the East by April 19th was generally very good wisdom. Peas can tolerate the cold weather that occurs in the shoulder seasons of spring and fall. Now, ripe peas are yellow, and historically, the French preferred a yellow pea. But since the 1600s, peas are mostly harvested when they are still immature and green. So very similar to how we treat peppers. And in China, by the way, it's the pea leaves that are considered a delicacy. So if you've never tried pea leaves in your salad, give that a go. And finally, Gregor Mendel experimented with peas to establish the modern science of genetics. During 7 years in the mid-1800s, Gregor grew nearly 30,000 pea plants, and he took note of everything about them, their height and shape and color. And it was Gregor Mendel who came up with all of the genetic terminology that we still use today, like dominant and recessive genes. Well, that's it for today's show. Just remember that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.